Imagine this. You're sitting in a muddy trench in Belgium. It's April 1915. The evening is calm, almost peaceful. Then you see it. A yellow-green cloud, rolling toward you like fog. But it's not fog. Your throat starts burning. Your lungs feel like they're on fire. Men around you are gasping, choking, clawing at their throats. This was the moment warfare changed forever. April 22nd, 1915. The Second Battle of Ypres. The day the Germans released 168 tons of chlorine gas and opened Pandora's box. What happened next? Over 5,000 men would die in minutes. Thousands more would be scarred for life. And the Allies? They had absolutely no idea what hit them. I'm going to take you through that day, minute by minute, because this isn't just history. This is the day humanity crossed a line we can never uncross. Let's dive in. To understand what happened that day, we need to go back a few weeks. By April 1915, the Western Front was a nightmare. Millions of men were dug into trenches stretching from the English Channel to Switzerland. And nobody was moving. The Battle of Ypres had been raging since October 1914. This small Belgian town, this salient, this bulge in the Allied lines, had become one of the most contested pieces of ground in the entire war. The Germans were frustrated. Machine guns, barbed wire, artillery. Nothing could break through. Every attack ended in slaughter. Thousands dead for a few yards of mud. But the German High Command had a plan. A secret weapon. His name was Fritz Haber. Brilliant chemist, Nobel Prize winner. And he had an idea that would change warfare forever. Haber proposed using chlorine gas, not as an explosive, but as a weapon. Released from cylinders, carried by the wind, it would roll into enemy trenches and suffocate anyone who breathed it. Now here's the thing. The Hague Conventions of 1899 and 1907 had banned poison weapons. But the Germans? They found a loophole. The conventions banned poison projectiles. This wasn't a projectile. This was just releasing gas. Technicality. Legal gymnastics. But it gave them the green light. By mid-April, German troops had installed 5,730 cylinders along a 4-mile front north of Ypres. Each cylinder was about 4 feet tall, filled with liquid chlorine under pressure, all connected by pipes, all waiting for the right wind conditions. The Germans waited and waited. For days, the wind wasn't right. Too weak. Wrong direction. You can't use gas if the wind might blow it back at your own troops. Finally, on April 22nd, 1915, the wind shifted. 5 p.m. April 22nd. German soldiers wearing primitive gas masks, crude things, basically just pads soaked in chemicals, began opening the valves on those cylinders. And the gas? It started to flow. Witnesses described it as a yellow-green cloud. Some said it looked like yellowish smoke. Others said it shimmered. It was heavier than air, so it rolled along the ground like liquid, filling every crater, every trench, every shell hole. And it was heading straight for the French 45th and 87th Divisions, mostly Algerian and territorial troops, colonial soldiers who had been holding this quiet sector. They had no warning, no gas masks, no training. They didn't even know what chlorine gas was. The cloud reached the French lines around 5:10 p.m. What happened next was absolute chaos. Chlorine gas attacks your respiratory system. When you breathe it, It mixes with the moisture in your lungs and creates hydrochloric acid. Your lungs literally burn from the inside. Soldiers started choking immediately, gasping for air. Their eyes burned. They coughed up blood and foam. Some men turned blue. Others fell to their knees, clawing at their throats. And there was nothing they could do. The French soldiers did the only thing they could. They ran. Thousands of men fled in panic, stumbling, gasping, trying to escape the cloud. Officers couldn't stop them. Nobody could stop them. Within minutes, a 4-mile gap had opened in the Allied line. 4 miles. Just empty trenches. No defenders. Nothing. The Germans had achieved what months of artillery and attacks couldn't do. They'd broken through. But here's the thing. Even the Germans weren't fully prepared for how effective this was. Behind the gas cloud came German infantry, 3 divisions, wearing those crude gas masks, moving cautiously through the contaminated zone. They expected resistance. They expected to fight for every yard. Instead, they found abandoned trenches, bodies, equipment scattered everywhere, rifles, ammunition, artillery pieces, all just left behind. The Germans advanced nearly 2 miles that evening. They captured the villages of Langermark and Pilkum. They took Lizerne and part of Bosinge. By nightfall, they had secured positions that overlooked Ypres itself. This should have been a catastrophic breakthrough. This should have ended the battle. But the Germans hesitated. Why? A few reasons. First, they didn't have enough reserves in position. They'd seen this as a test, an experiment. They didn't expect it to work this well. So they didn't have enough troops ready to exploit the breakthrough. Second, even German troops were afraid of the gas. Moving through the contaminated area slowed them down. Their gas masks were uncomfortable, hard to see through. Some of their own men were affected by the gas. And third, darkness was falling. And in 1915, attacking at night was asking for chaos. The Germans dug in. They'd wait until morning to continue the offensive. But the Allies, they weren't done. Canadian troops, holding the line to the south of the gas attack, realized what had happened. They saw the gap. They knew if the Germans pushed through, Ypres would fall. And if Ypres fell, the entire front could collapse. So that night, Canadian and British units launched desperate counterattacks. Not to retake the ground, just to plug the gap, just to create some kind of defensive line. These men advanced into territory still contaminated with gas. Some wrapped wet cloths around their faces, handkerchiefs soaked in water, or even urine, anything to filter the air. It barely helped, but they held. Somehow, they held. Let's talk about the cost. The exact casualties from that first gas attack? We'll never know for sure. Record keeping was chaotic. Many bodies were never recovered. Many wounded died days or weeks later from lung damage. But here's what we do know. Conservative estimates say around 5,000 men died in the immediate attack. Most were French colonial troops from the 45th and 87th Divisions. Another 10,000 to 15,000 were wounded or incapacitated. Some died within minutes. Others survived the initial attack, but died hours later as fluid filled their lungs. They essentially drowned on dry land. Survivors describe the screams, men begging for help, the wet, rattling sound of men trying to breathe through ruined lungs, the smell of chlorine, this sickly sweet choking smell that lingered for days. Medical stations were overwhelmed. Doctors had no idea how to treat chlorine gas exposure. They tried oxygen. They tried fresh air. They tried everything they could think of. For many men, there was nothing they could do but wait. Wait to see if the soldiers' lungs would recover, or wait for them to die. And here's something that doesn't get talked about enough: the psychological impact. Gas was different from bullets or shells. You couldn't see it coming in time to react. You couldn't hide from it. It seeped into trenches, dugouts, anywhere. It was invisible death, and it absolutely terrified soldiers. After Ypres, every time the wind shifted, men panicked. Every strange smell, every unusual cloud, soldiers would scramble for cover, reaching for gas masks they didn't have yet. The psychological weapon was almost as effective as the physical one. So here's the question everyone asks: how were the Allies so unprepared? The answer? A combination of intelligence failures, disbelief, and bureaucracy. First, the Allies had warnings. Multiple warnings. A German deserter named August Jäger had defected to the French on April 13th. That's 9 days before the attack. He told French intelligence that gas cylinders were being installed in the German trenches. He described the plan in detail. The French High Command? They didn't believe him. They thought it was German disinformation, a trick to make them waste resources. Belgian intelligence also reported unusual German activity. British aerial reconnaissance photographed the cylinders. Allied soldiers in the trenches even saw German troops installing them. But nobody put it together. Nobody took it seriously. Why? A few reasons. 1. Chemical weapons seemed ungentlemanly. I know how that sounds. We're talking about a war that had already killed hundreds of thousands with machine guns and artillery. But there was this belief that poison gas crossed a line, that no civilized nation would actually use it. The Hague Conventions had banned it. Surely Germany wouldn't violate international law like that. Right? Wrong. 2. Even if Germany used gas, many Allied commanders didn't think it would be effective. Gas is dependent on wind, weather. It seemed unreliable, impractical. 3. There was just so much intelligence coming in. Reports of German plans, troop movements, new weapons. Intelligence officers had to decide what was credible and what wasn't. And this seemed too fantastical. So when April 22nd came, the soldiers in those trenches had no gas masks, no training, no idea what was about to hit them. It was a catastrophic failure, one that would cost thousands of lives and change warfare forever. After Ypres, everything changed. The Germans had proven gas worked. The Allies were horrified, but they also took notes. Within weeks, British and French scientists began developing their own chemical weapons. By September 1915, the British would launch their first gas attack at the Battle of Loos. The French would follow soon after. The genie was out of the bottle, and it wasn't going back in. Gas warfare would escalate throughout World War I. Both sides developed more lethal chemicals: phosgene, which was deadlier than chlorine; mustard gas, which caused horrific burns and blisters. Each side trying to outdo the other in chemical horror. By the end of the war, over 124,000 tons of chemical weapons had been used. More than 1.3 million casualties. Over 90,000 deaths directly from gas. All of it started here. April 22nd, 1915. Ypres. Gas masks became standard equipment. Every soldier on the Western Front carried one. Chemical weapons went from experimental to routine, from unthinkable to just another way to kill. And the psychological impact? It never went away. Veterans of the gas attacks suffered for decades. Lung problems, nightmares. The smell of chlorine would trigger panic attacks years later. One of those veterans? A young German soldier exposed to British gas in 1918, temporarily blinded. His name was Adolf Hitler. Make of that what you will. So what's the legacy of that day? April 22nd, 1915 marked a turning point, not just in World War I, but in how humanity wages war. Beat. For the first time, science was weaponized on an industrial scale, not to build better defenses or faster transportation, but specifically to kill more efficiently. Fritz Haber, the man behind the gas attack, believed he was helping Germany win the war, saving German lives by ending the stalemate. He called it a higher form of killing. His wife, Clara Immerwahr, also a chemist, disagreed. She called it a perversion of science. 10 days after the Ypres attack, she took Haber's service pistol and shot herself in the heart. Haber continued his work. He'd later win a Nobel Prize, though many countries refused to honor him. And here's the dark irony. Haber was Jewish. In the 1930s, the Nazis drove him out of Germany. The same poison gas technology he pioneered, the Nazis would later use Zyklon B, developed by his colleagues, in the Holocaust. History is complicated. After World War I, the world tried to ban chemical weapons. The 1925 Geneva Protocol prohibited their use. But many countries kept stockpiles, just in case. World War II saw very limited chemical warfare, mostly because everyone feared retaliation. Mutual deterrence. But chemical weapons never disappeared. They were used in Yemen in the 1960s, in the Iran-Iraq War in the 1980s, in Syria in the 2010s. The ghost of Ypres still haunts us. April 22nd, 1915 opened a door that humanity has tried to close, but never quite can. So that's the story of the first gas attack. Ypres, April 22nd, 1915. 168 tons of chlorine gas, 5,000 dead in minutes, thousands more scarred for life, and a line crossed that changed warfare forever. It's a reminder that in war, desperation breeds innovation, and not all innovation is progress. Now I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below. What do you think about the use of chemical weapons? Was this a military necessity or a war crime? Where do we draw the line in warfare? These are hard questions, and I genuinely want to know what you think. If you found this video informative, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. Share it with anyone interested in military history. And subscribe if you want more deep dives into World War I and II history. I've got more videos coming on chemical warfare, the evolution of gas masks, phosgene, mustard gas, the whole terrible progression. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss those. Thank you for watching. Remember to think critically about history. Learn from it. Because those who forget the past, well, you know how that goes. Until next time, stay curious.